Welcome to the Endo Belly Girl podcast. I'm your host, Alyssa Chavez. I'm a nutritional therapy practitioner and restorative wellness practitioner on a mission to change the way that we support women with endometriosis. Endo is a full-body disease that impacts your mind, body, and spirit in countless ways that aren't often addressed the way that women truly deserve. We are here to talk about all of it. Please keep in mind that the content of this show has been created for educational purposes only and should never be used as a replacement for medical diagnosis or treatment. Hey, my friend, and welcome back to the Endo Belly Girl podcast. Last week, we took a deep dive into inflammation and your gut and all the connections there, and I promised you that this week we would take a dive into how your diet can impact inflammation and all the things anti-inflammatory diet, something I receive questions about all the time. What if the food on your plate could actually reduce your pain and help you to feel more in control of your body? Today, we are going to dive into the world of anti-inflammatory diets tailored specifically for endometriosis. I'm your host, Alyssa Chavez. I'm a functional nutritionist specializing in endometriosis, but I'm also an endo warrior myself, and I have seen my life transform from debilitating pain, fatigue, and gut issues to actually feeling good and thriving in my body again using the methods that I teach here on the podcast. So today, we're going to unpack what an anti-inflammatory diet actually is, what it isn't, and how to customize it and tailor it to fit your unique body and life. First, let's bust some common myths surrounding anti-inflammatory diets for endo. Myth number 1, an anti-inflammatory diet works the same for everyone. The truth: individual bodies react differently to foods, even healthy ones. An anti-inflammatory diet is most effective when it's personalized, considering food sensitivities, lifestyle, and underlying health conditions. Myth number 2, an anti-inflammatory diet is just another fad diet. The truth: an anti-inflammatory diet is not a short-term trend, but it's a scientifically supported way of eating that focuses on whole, nutrient-dense foods to reduce inflammation in your body. It's a sustainable, long-term approach tailored to your individual health needs. Myth number 3, you'll see immediate results. The truth: while some people notice benefits quickly, the effects of an anti-inflammatory diet, like reduced pain and improved energy, can take weeks or even months as your body heals and inflammation decreases. Because remember, you didn't get to where you are overnight, and so you can't expect to just all of a sudden magically feel better overnight. This true healing can take some time. Okay, so let's dig into what it actually looks like to eat an anti-inflammatory diet. For starters, it's important to understand that individuality matters. Even as a functional nutritionist, I don't have a one-size-fits-all diet plan that works for everybody. If so, my job would be so much simpler. So if that's what you're here for today, spoiler alert, that's not what you're getting, my friend. But what you are getting is a comprehensive guide to what an anti-inflammatory diet actually is and how you can bio-individualize it to you and your unique needs. When we're talking bio-individuality, there are so many factors at play. We all have different food sensitivities, nutrient needs, and are even living different lives. Not to mention, we all have different connections with food emotionally or culturally, and just personal preferences. And all of that needs to be taken into consideration as well. Because remember, the goal here isn't just to use food as a tool to nourish your body, but to live a fulfilling life and truly thrive with endo. In fact, that's why my one-on-one program is called Thrive with Endo. So, as we dig into all things anti-inflammatory diet today, be sure to keep in mind all the things that are most important to you so that you can create sustainable change at the end of the day. Okay, so let's take a look at really the meat of today's episodes, which are the 10 key steps to creating an individualized anti-inflammatory diet. All right, step 1. Identify and eliminate common inflammatory foods. These are the foods that have been studied to promote inflammation on a wider scale. This list can include processed foods, refined sugar, vegetable and seed oils like canola, corn, sunflower, safflower, alcohol, and for most endo warriors, that will include gluten and dairy. Corn and soy are other foods that can be higher on that list that can contribute to inflammation, especially if they are GMO or just heavily sprayed with pesticide crops. Eliminating foods like this can be challenging, sure, but is it more challenging than being in pain all the time? Is it more challenging than what you have going on right now? Ask yourself that question. Eliminating these foods can help to reduce sources of inflammation that can aggravate symptoms in your body, like pain, fatigue, and GI symptoms like bloating. Step number 2. Focus on incorporating key anti-inflammatory nutrients like omega-3s, which includes fatty fish like salmon, herring, and mackerel, as well as walnuts, chia seeds, and flax seeds. Antioxidants are great. Think produce that's rich in color. Magnesium, think veggies. Fiber, think veggies again, seeing a theme here. We really dug deep into some of the specific key nutrients for endometriosis in episode 63, titled Top 6 Nutrients for Endo. I will link to that one in the show notes if you'd like to hear more details on that, because there are some specific nutrients like that that can be super beneficial for endo warriors. But that gives you an idea, at least, of some of those things to focus on. Step number 3, support your gut health. We talked a lot about that in the last episode, episode 70. If you haven't listened to that one yet, be sure to go back to check it out. Some of the basics include eating plenty of fiber-rich veggies. There's those veggies again. Allow space between your meals in order to digest properly, and incorporate some gut-nourishing foods like bone broth. Step number 4. Personalize your diet based on your unique sensitivities and symptoms. I recommend even keeping a food journal for a couple of weeks if you haven't done this before, where you can track everything you eat along with your symptoms to see if you can make any connections there. Step number 5, incorporate anti-inflammatory spices in your diet. Those can include things like turmeric, ginger, and even cinnamon. You can take those in tea form. That's one of my favorites. I love sipping on some turmeric and ginger tea. You can also grate fresh herbs. You can just buy the herbs in root form and grate them onto salads, into soups, into stir fries. You can put them in smoothies. You can also use the dried powder form of those herbs in many of those areas as well. But incorporating some of those spices that can be very powerful anti-inflammatories, highly recommend. Step number 6, balance macronutrients. So your macronutrients are your protein, your fats, and your carbs. We want to get all of those into your diet, just so that we're clear. I will never recommend that you cut out any one of those macronutrients because they're all needed in our bodies. You do, however, want to focus on building a balanced plate. So what a balanced plate looks like is basically about 25% of your plate should be a high quality protein. And when I say high quality protein, the type of protein that's most bioavailable is going to be your animal protein. So if you're eating a piece of chicken, you're eating some scrambled eggs, you're eating a steak, you're eating a piece of salmon, whatever your protein is, you want that to be about 25% of your plate. Now, note on that, most of those sources of protein also contain fats. It's not like these macronutrients are completely in isolation from each other. Many of them are combined in some of the foods that we eat. So about 25% of your plate you want to be healthy sources of protein. And then we have the non-starchy vegetables, which include zucchini, bell pepper, broccoli, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts, all of those non-starchy vegetables. You want those to fill up about 50%. Yes, 50% of your plate. And then that remaining 25% can be filled with starchy veggies or even grains if your body tolerates those. So things like sweet potato, parsnips, brown rice, things like that. Those starchy carbohydrates can fill up about 25% of your plate. And then as far as the fats, we want to think of just cooking with healthy fats to help to get that into your diet as well. So I personally really love to use ghee, is probably my very favorite fat to cook with. It's a clarified butter. So most people who don't tolerate dairy will tolerate ghee well. I can't say that for absolutely everybody, but I would say most people do, myself included. You can also use fats like coconut oil or tallow to cook with your food, and that way you know you're getting some good healthy fats in there as well. And you can also include things like avocado, some of those other forms of produce that contain some fats as well, or nuts. Any of that kind of stuff can be really good as well to get those healthy fats into your diet. All right, then we dig into step number 7, minimize toxins in your food. We've talked a lot about toxins on this podcast before because it's super, super important. But today we're going to focus in on the food aspect when it comes to toxins. And what that means is that you're choosing organic produce whenever it's possible. If your budget doesn't allow for organic produce all the time, which is really my recommendation, you can also lean into the Environmental Working Group, EWG, has a dirty dozen list, meaning those are the 12 forms of produce that are going to be most heavily sprayed with pesticides. They update that list every year, so you always have the most up-to-date information. You can just do a quick Google search, EWG Dirty Dozen. It's super easy to find, and you can see the most up-to-date information that way. So, but choosing organic produce helps to really minimize your toxin exposure in what you're getting in on a day-to-day basis, as well as thinking of other types of sourcing for the food that you're eating. Thinking non-GMO foods, that's the genetically modified crops, which things like wheat and corn are some of those, and soy are some of those most genetically modified crops that we have to be aware of. So you do want to look for that non-GMO label on any foods that you're buying as well. And then when it comes to sources of protein, you want to think pasture-raised, wild-caught, grass-fed, all of those good things, organic, of course, as well, because that way you know also the sources of protein that you're consuming have not been contaminated with more toxins. Be that if the animals are fed with toxic, produce themselves, that can be an issue, or if they're given antibiotics or hormones or any of the other things that they like to give our protein as they're raising it, which really aren't great for either side of things, the animals or our health. So be aware of all of that stuff. The sourcing of your food is so, so, so important. One of the most important things that you can do for your health, and it absolutely has to do with inflammation as well. And then in addition to food, you want to also think of filtering your water to avoid toxins in water. So that means avoiding drinking water out of plastic bottles or plastic in general, using some sort of good filter for your water. A reverse osmosis filter can be really good, although you will want to add minerals back in because it does remove the good stuff as well as the bad. So you want to remineralize your water if you're doing that stuff. But water is one of the major places that toxins can come into our bodies, and toxins do absolutely contribute to that inflammation. So absolutely something to be aware of. Step 8, stay hydrated. Hydration is important too. It's not just about the food. Hydration helps to support digestion, it helps to support blood sugar regulation, it helps to support detoxification, so many things in our bodies. So the general recommendation here when it comes to hydration is to aim for about half of your body weight in ounces every day. So for example, if you weigh about 140 pounds, you would want to aim for about 70 ounces of water each day. So if that's not something that you're doing right now, or maybe you're drinking water, but you're also drinking a lot of diuretics like coffee and tea and juices and things that dehydrate your body, really have an awareness of that. See if you can up the amount of true water that you're drinking so that your body is well hydrated and that allows it to really function well. Step number 9, consider cycle syncing, meaning aligning your meals with your menstrual cycle. We really talked about this a lot in episode 55, The Dance of Hormones, Navigating Your Cycle with Grace. We talked a lot about cycle syncing in different areas of your life, including your diet and exercise and even your work that you're doing, if that's something that you can adjust. And so there's so many different things that we can really plan around our cycles, all the things that are possible. It may not be possible for everything going on in your body, but when it comes to food, since we're really focused on the food piece of it today, the foods that you eat can absolutely influence your body in various phases of your menstrual cycle. And also, our bodies are just better able to digest and absorb different types of food at different points in our cycle. So for example, when you are around your periods, you want to focus on warmer, nourishing foods. You can often do like heavier kinds of foods. Soups can be really good. In anti-inflammatory herbs, I really like to do some red meat right around my periods during and after to help to get some good iron in your body. Whereas around ovulation, you may want to lean more into lighter foods like fish and salads and steamed vegetables, things that are a little bit lighter around that time. So things to think about. Again, if you want more information on that, check out episode 55. I will link to that one in the show notes for you as well to make that easy to find. Okay, step number 10, final step here today. Thinking about targeted supplementation when necessary. Now remember, when it comes to supplementation, this is bio-individual as well. And I will also remind you, as always with supplements, that supplements are, as the name implies, intended to be supplemental to all the diet and lifestyle work. They will not replace a high-quality diet, but they can help to support a high-quality diet. Some of the key supplements that can really be supportive of reducing inflammation can include things like omega-3s, magnesium, vitamin D, zinc, curcumin, which is the active compound in turmeric, which we talked about earlier, one of those anti-inflammatory herbs. Those are some of those key supplements that have been researched and shown in being supportive of reducing inflammation. So something to be aware of there. And, you know, some of those things that just can be challenging to get enough in our diets. Things like magnesium in particular, it's just our soils these days, because of the way that they grow crops and the amount of crops that they're growing at a time, our soils are very depleted from nutrients like magnesium. So where you may have been able to get enough magnesium through your diet, say back in the 1950s, fast forward to it is now 2025, can you believe it? It can be very challenging to actually get enough of some of those nutrients. So that's where sometimes I do recommend supplementing. It helps to support that. Okay, so let's do a quick recap of those 10 steps just to help to allow that to sink in today. So we had step 1 was all about identifying and eliminating common inflammatory foods. Step 2, focus on incorporating some of the key anti-inflammatory nutrients like omega-3s, antioxidants, magnesium, and fiber. Step 3, support your gut health. Step 4, personalize your diet based on your unique sensitivities and symptoms. Keeping a food journal can be a good start on that. Step 5, incorporate anti-inflammatory spices in your diet like turmeric and ginger. Step number 6, balance out those macronutrients. Get the right ratio going on of your protein, your fats, and your carbs. You do need all of those. Step number 7, minimize toxins in your food by choosing organic, non-GMO, high-quality proteins, all the things whenever possible, and drinking filtered water. Step number 8, stay well hydrated. Step number 9, consider cycle syncing your meals, aligning with your menstrual cycle. And step number 10, incorporate targeted supplementation when it's necessary. Now, that's a lot of stuff. I don't expect you to run out there and do all the things starting tomorrow. If you're kind of just dipping your toes in and getting started on doing an overhaul on your diet, what I really recommend is to start small. It's much easier to make longer-term, lasting, sustainable changes when you're taking it just one step at a time. So start small by eliminating one inflammatory food at a time. Maybe you start off with doing a little challenge where you eliminate gluten and see how that goes. At the same time, you can add one anti-inflammatory food or spice to your meals. Maybe you start incorporating more salmon into your life, since salmon is very rich in omega-3s, which are a powerful anti-inflammatory. Be aware with salmon or any kind of seafood, do your best to get wild caught, because that, again, is going to be the highest quality and most nutrient dense, most rich in the omega-3s. And then start just keeping a little food and symptom journal so that you can start to keep an eye on connections you can make between your food, the foods that you're eating, and any symptoms that you're experiencing. That can be super helpful too. And then be sure to just save this episode so that you can come back to it in the future. And if you haven't already, of course, hit subscribe to this podcast on your favorite podcasting platform so that you don't miss any wonderful future episodes where we talk about more of this as well, because you know I love talking diet on this podcast. Now, if you're loving this episode, you're loving this information, and you are wanting to really take the bull by the horns in 2025, if you're listening to this in real time and want to get that anti-inflammatory diet dialed in, be sure to join me in my upcoming free challenge if you're listening to this in real time. My brand new Endo Diet Reset Challenge will be beginning on January 27th. In just 14 days during that challenge, you'll learn to create a personalized anti-inflammatory diet that works for your body. Through simple daily actions, guided videos, and expert tips, you'll uncover the foods that fuel your body and those that trigger your symptoms. By the end of the challenge, you'll have a clear, bio-individualized plan to reduce pain, improve digestion, and feel more energized without relying on medications or guesswork. Join the challenge today and take the first step towards reclaiming your life from endo. To join, head over to www.endobellygirl.com/reset. That's reset, RESET. I will link that in the show notes as well for that to make that easy to find. But one more time, that's www.endobellygirl.com/reset. I'll see you there, my friend. Much love. Thank you so much for joining me today, my friend. If you loved what you heard, be sure to share with a friend and subscribe so that you can keep coming back for more. If you are ready to take the next step towards getting to the root cause of your endo symptoms like endobelly, pain, fatigue, and so much more, you need to download my free ultimate guide to building your own endometriosis diet. You can find the link in the show notes or at www.endobellygirl.com. Until next time, my friend.